Ethan Cole's hands were still bleeding when the woman he'd just dragged from a burning car opened her eyes and spoke 5 words that would haunt him forever. "I know who you are." He'd never seen her before in his life. She was a CEO worth millions. He was a janitor who couldn't pay his electric bill. But somehow this stranger knew his name, his past, his buried dreams. And what she knew would either save his life or destroy it. Because in 72 hours, she would reveal a secret about him that he didn't even know himself. "Don't let fear make this decision for you." Those words would change everything. But first, let me tell you about the morning Ethan Cole woke up in the dark. 4:30 a.m. No alarm, no lights. The power company had finally made good on their threat. Ethan sat up on the couch where he'd been sleeping for 6 months, his breath visible in the cold apartment. His phone showed one missed call from a number he didn't recognize. Probably debt collectors. They were the only ones who called anymore. "Daddy?" Sophie's small voice came from the doorway. "Why are the lights not working again?" 7 years old, and she already understood what unpaid bills meant. That understanding broke Ethan's heart every single day. "Just a mix-up, sweetheart," he said, forcing brightness into his voice that he didn't feel. "But today's my big interview. Remember?" Sophie climbed into his lap, her pajamas too small, her hair unbrushed. "The one where you get to fix things like you used to with Mommy." Sarah. 3 years gone, and her absence still filled every corner of their lives like smoke. "Yeah, baby, like I used to." "Then you'll get it," Sophie said with absolute 7-year-old certainty. "Because you're the best fixer in the whole world." If only the world agreed. An hour later, Ethan's ancient Honda coughed its way onto the highway. The interview was at 8. Warehouse maintenance, minimum wage. Not the engineering career he'd dreamed of, but dreams didn't pay rent. The suit he wore still smelled like Sarah's funeral. 3 years, and he hadn't needed it since. The highway stretched gray and endless under a grayer March sky. Ethan's mind wandered to the interview questions, to how he'd explain the gaps in his resume without mentioning medical debt or his daughter eating cereal for dinner 3 nights a week. That's when he saw the smoke. Just a dark smudge at first. Then he rounded the curve and his heart stopped. A silver Maserati crushed against the guardrail, flames pouring from under the hood. Cars were slowing, looking, but nobody stopped. Nobody got out. Ethan's hands moved before his brain caught up. The Honda screamed onto the shoulder. He was out and running before the car fully stopped. "Hey!" someone yelled from a passing vehicle. "Don't be stupid. It's gonna blow." Through the smoke-filled window he could see her. A woman slumped over the steering wheel. Not moving, not breathing. The heat slammed into him like a physical wall. The door was jammed, twisted metal, already hot enough to burn through his jacket. Ethan pulled. Nothing. Pulled harder. The door gave an inch. Not enough. The flames were spreading, crawling up from underneath. Any second now. Any second this would all be over. Wait. Ethan spotted it. A chunk of concrete from the broken guardrail. He grabbed it, swung hard, and the driver's side window exploded. Without hesitation, he reached through the jagged glass, ignoring the way it tore his arms, and found the door lock. The door flew open. Smoke poured out thick and choking. The woman wasn't breathing. Blood matted her dark hair. Expensive suit. Diamond earrings. Someone important. Someone loved. "Not today," Ethan muttered, reaching in, burning his hands on the doorframe as he unclipped her seatbelt. "Not like this." She was heavier than she looked, dead weight at a terrible angle. Ethan braced and pulled. His shoulders screamed. His back threatened to snap, but he pulled harder. They tumbled backward onto the gravel just as flames engulfed the passenger seat. Ethan rolled, covering her body with his as heat washed over them. Not an explosion. Not yet. But close. Too close. He was dragging her away from the car when he heard sirens. Fire trucks. Ambulance. They'd made it. She'd made it. Ethan collapsed onto the gravel, coughing blood, his hands screaming. Only then did he look at them. Burnt. Bleeding. Ruined. Only then did he remember the interview, the suit that was now shredded, the time that had vanished while he'd played hero. "Sir, are you injured?" A paramedic knelt beside him. "I'm fine. Her. Check her." They were already working on the woman, checking vitals, loading her onto a gurney. As they lifted her, her eyes flickered open, just for a second, just long enough to find Ethan through the smoke and chaos. Her hand shot out and grabbed his torn sleeve with impossible strength. Her lips moved, forming words that would echo in his nightmares. "I know who you are." 5 words. That's all it took to change everything. Then her eyes closed and they were taking her away, and Ethan was left bleeding on the highway shoulder, wondering if he'd imagined it. Wondering how a stranger in a Maserati could possibly know a janitor's name. A firefighter helped him stand. "That was brave and stupid in equal measure, son. You're lucky to be alive." "Is she going to make it?" "Thanks to you?" "Yeah. She's got a fighting chance." The firefighter looked at Ethan's hands. "But you need medical attention. Those are second-degree burns." "I can't afford second-degree anything," Ethan said, then caught himself. "I mean, I have an interview. I need to go." The firefighter stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Your suit's destroyed, and you're worried about an interview." "It's all I've got left." They bandaged his hands, gave him burn cream, made him sign a waiver. By the time Ethan got back to his car, it was 9:15. The interview was over. The job was gone. All he had was burnt hands and a dying woman's impossible words echoing in his head. He drove home past billboards advertising lives he'd never live, past futures that kept slipping away. When he pulled up to his building, Mrs. Chen was waiting outside with Sophie. "Ethan! Oh my God!" Mrs. Chen's hand flew to her mouth. Sophie's face went white. "Daddy, your hands." "I'm okay, sweetheart," Ethan said, but his voice broke. "There was an accident. I helped someone." Mrs. Chen looked at his ruined suit, his bandaged hands. "The interview." Ethan shook his head. "Oh, Ethan." That pitying tone he hated. "Let me make you food. I can watch Sophie tonight if you need rest." "Thanks, Mrs. Chen. But I think we just need each other right now." That night, Ethan sat on the couch with Sophie curled against him, watching her favorite show on his phone, since they still had no power. She kept staring at his bandaged hands with worried eyes. "Does it hurt really bad?" she whispered. "Not too bad," he lied. "Was the person okay?" "I don't know, baby. I hope so." Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Mommy would be proud, for being brave." That's when Ethan finally let himself feel it. The exhaustion, the pain, the crushing weight of another failure. He'd saved someone's life today, but he still couldn't save his own. What he didn't know was that across the city, in a private hospital room, Clara Hayes was waking up. And the first thing she did was make a phone call. "Find him," she said into the phone, her voice raspy from smoke. "Find Ethan Cole, and find out everything. I need to know if I'm right about him." "Right about what, Ms. Hayes?" her security chief asked. "About why someone wanted me dead, and about who he really is." The next morning, Ethan woke to pounding on his door. Loud, insistent. 7 a.m. Sophie was still sleeping. With burnt hands making everything difficult, he shuffled to the door and opened it. A man in an expensive suit stood there. Not the landlord. Through the grimy hallway window, Ethan could see a black town car idling at the curb. "Ethan Cole." "That's me. If you're serving papers, keep it down. My daughter's sleeping." "I'm not here to serve papers, Mr. Cole. I'm here on behalf of Clara Hayes. She wants to thank you personally for saving her life." The world tilted. Clara Hayes. The woman from the car. The CEO of Caldwell Innovations. "Ms. Hayes is recovering at Northwestern Memorial. She's insisting on seeing you today. I have a car downstairs." "I can't just leave. I have a daughter. I don't even know who you are." The man pulled out a business card. Marcus Webb, head of security, Caldwell Innovations. Ms. Hayes was very specific, Mr. Cole, she needs to see you. It's urgent. Something in his tone made Ethan's stomach clench. Urgent? Why? Marcus glanced down the hallway, then lowered his voice. Because someone cut her brake lines, Mr. Cole. That accident wasn't an accident, and she thinks you might be in danger too. The words hung in the air like poison. What? Why would I be in danger? I don't even know her. That's what she wants to talk to you about. Please, Mr. Cole. She asked me to tell you. Marcus hesitated. She said to tell you that Wednesday night at Caldwell Tower, you weren't alone. Someone else was watching you fix that prototype. Ice flooded Ethan's veins. Wednesday night. The 15th floor. The broken prototype he'd fixed without thinking. He'd assumed he was alone. The security cameras, maybe, but nothing else. Who was watching me? That's what we're trying to find out. Will you come? 20 minutes later, after explaining everything to Mrs. Chen and checking on Sophie, Ethan was in the back of the town car. The leather seats were softer than any bed he'd slept in. Marcus drove in silence through neighborhoods that got progressively cleaner, richer, more foreign. Can I ask you something? Ethan said finally. Of course. How did she know my name at the accident? She said, I know who you are. How? Marcus's jaw tightened. Ms. Hayes has been looking for you since Wednesday night, Mr. Cole. You left something behind on that workbench. My badge, I know. But that doesn't explain. Your badge was the easy part. Marcus glanced at him in the rearview mirror. What's harder to explain is why someone broke into the building 30 minutes after you left and tried to sabotage the same prototype you'd just fixed. Ethan's mouth went dry. What? Whoever it was didn't know you'd already solved the problem. They thought they were destroying a failed project. Instead, they just looked incompetent. Marcus pulled up to Northwestern Memorial's private entrance. Ms. Hayes thinks that whoever it was realized their mistake. And that's when things got dangerous. The hospital's top floor was all polished marble and views of the lake. Clara Hayes sat propped up in bed, left arm in a sling, bruises dark against pale skin. But her eyes were sharp alert, fixed on him the moment he walked in. Mr. Cole, she said, her voice raspy but firm. Thank you for coming. Please sit. Your security guy said someone tried to kill you, and that I might be in danger. I'd rather stand. Clara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Fair enough. Marcus, give us the room, please. After Marcus left, Clara studied Ethan with an intensity that made him want to run. Do you know who I am? CEO of Caldwell Innovations. That's all your guy told me? And you pulled me out of that burning car anyway. Didn't check if I was worth saving. Nobody deserves to burn, Ethan said simply. You'd be surprised how many people would disagree. I'm not exactly known for being kind, Mr. Cole. I've made enemies. She paused. But you're just a janitor trying to feed his daughter. So why would someone want us both dead? I'm not dead. Not yet. But you will be if we don't figure this out. Clara leaned forward. Tell me about Wednesday night. Everything you remember. Ethan's mind raced back. I was cleaning the 15th floor, R&D division. I saw a prototype on a workbench half assembled. There was a note that said, failed again, circulation system locked. I looked at it for maybe 5 minutes. Saw the problem. Reversed valve sequence. Basic fluid dynamics. I fixed it and moved on. Did you see anyone else? Hear anything? No, I thought I was alone. You weren't. Clara pulled out a tablet. With her good hand tapped it, showed him security footage. Black and white. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m. Wednesday. There was Ethan leaning over the workbench making adjustments. Then the camera angle switched. 11:52 p.m. A figure in dark clothes entered from another entrance, saw the fixed prototype, froze. The figure looked around frantically, then ran. "Who is that?" Ethan asked. "We don't know. They disabled their face from being captured. But we know what they did next." Clara swiped to another video. The parking garage. 1:23 a.m. Thursday. The same figure crouching beside her Maserati, working on something underneath. "They cut my brake lines. Probably thought if I died in an accident they could blame the failed prototype on me. Destroy the evidence. Start over. But I fixed it. So now the prototype works." "Exactly. Which means someone failed. And failed people make desperate mistakes." Clara set down the tablet. "I spent all day Thursday looking for you. The janitor who'd outsmarted my entire engineering department. When I found out who you were, I had you investigated, thoroughly." Ethan's face flushed. "So you know about the debt, about Sarah, about everything." "I know you're a widowed father with a daughter named Sophie. I know your wife died from cancer 3 years ago, leaving you with $200,000 in medical debt. I know you have a mechanical engineering degree from UIC that you've never gotten to use because life buried you. I know you're working 2 jobs and still can't keep the lights on." Clara's voice softened. "I know you missed your interview yesterday because you were too busy saving my life." "Stop, please." Ethan's voice cracked. "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because I need you to understand what I'm about to offer you. And why. I don't want charity." "Good, because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering you a job." Clara pulled out a folder. $85,000 a year to start. Full benefits. Health insurance that actually covers things. Education fund for Sophie. You'll work in my R&D division developing humanitarian technology, clean water systems, sustainable agriculture. Things that actually help people. The room spun. 85,000. That was more than he'd made in 3 years. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Because Wednesday night, you saved a project worth $12 million and helped 100,000 people get clean water. Because yesterday, you saved my life without hesitation. Because I need someone who sees problems and fixes them without being asked, without expecting anything in return." Clara paused. "And because whoever tried to kill me is still out there. And I think they're going to come after you next." "What? Why me?" "Because you're the only other person who knows that prototype works. You're a witness. And you're vulnerable. A poor janitor with no connections, no resources, no protection." Clara's eyes hardened. "But if you work for me, that changes. You'll have security, resources, a team. You'll be protected." "This is insane." "This is survival, Mr. Cole. For both of us." Ethan shook his head. "I can't do this. I haven't worked as an engineer in 8 years. I'll fail. I'll embarrass you. "Don't let fear make this decision for you," Clara said quietly. Those words hung in the air between them like a lifeline. "I'm terrified," Ethan admitted. "This doesn't happen to people like me. It's happening right now. The question is whether you're brave enough to grab it, or too afraid to try." Clara held out the folder. "Take it home, read it, talk to Sophie. But don't take too long, because whoever's out there, they're watching, and they're waiting." Ethan took the folder with shaking hands. "You still haven't told me. At the accident, when you said, 'I know who you are,' how did you know we'd never met?" Clara smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. "Because Wednesday night you left your badge on that workbench. I spent Thursday looking for the janitor who'd solved the impossible. When I saw you through that shattered window yesterday, covered in blood-breaking glass with your bare hands to save a stranger." She shook her head. "I knew exactly who you were. The man who fixes broken things without being asked. The man who saves people without thinking twice. That's who you are, Ethan Cole." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "But here's what I didn't tell you. When I had you investigated, I found something else. Something in your wife's medical records. Something the doctors missed." Ethan's heart stopped. "What?" Sarah's cancer. It wasn't random, Mr. Cole. The specific type, the aggressive nature, the way it resisted treatment. Clara's eyes locked onto his. I've seen it before, in 3 other cases, all connected to Caldwell Innovations, all connected to a project we shut down 5 years ago. The world tilted on its axis. What are you saying? I'm saying your wife's death might not have been an accident. I'm saying someone at my company might be responsible. And I'm saying that when you fixed that prototype Wednesday night, you might have stumbled onto proof. Clara's voice was steady, but her eyes showed something Ethan hadn't expected. Fear. So yes, I'm offering you a job, but I'm also offering you answers. About Sarah, about what really happened to her, if you're brave enough to find out the truth. Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Sarah's death wasn't random. Someone killed her, and now that same someone wanted him dead too. Who? He managed. Who did this? That's what we're going to find out. Together. Clara gestured to the folder. But first you need to decide. Are you just a janitor who wants to stay invisible? Or are you an engineer who's ready to fight back? That night, Ethan sat at their kitchen table under the camping lantern, the contract spread in front of him. Every word felt like a promise. Every clause felt like a threat. Sarah's face floated in his memory, her smile, her laugh, her final words. Take care of Sophie, and don't stop dreaming. Someone had killed her, and they'd tried to make Ethan disappear too. Bury him under debt and poverty and grief until he was nothing. But they'd made a mistake. They'd let him survive. They'd let him fix that prototype. They'd let him save Clara Hayes. And now he had a choice. There was a soft knock. Sophie stood in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Can't sleep, baby?" Ethan asked. "I heard you crying," Sophie said quietly. He hadn't realized he was. "Come here, sweetheart." She climbed into his lap, her small hand resting on his bandaged one. "Are you sad about Mommy?" "A little bit. But something else happened today, too. Something big." He took a breath. "A lady offered me a job. A really good job. The kind I used to dream about before Mommy got sick." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Really fixing things, engineering things, building things that help people. Like you helped that lady in the fire?" "Yeah, exactly like that." Sophie was quiet for a moment, studying his face with those eyes that saw everything. Then she touched his cheek with tiny fingers. "Are you going to say no because you're scared?" The question hit him like a punch. "What makes you think I'm scared?" "Because your eyes don't smile anymore, Daddy. Not since Mommy died. And when you're really scared, they get even more sad." She traced the lines around his eyes. "But today, when you told me about the job, your eyes smiled just a little bit. I saw it." 7 years old, and she could read him better than anyone. "What if I'm not good enough?" Ethan whispered. "What if I fail?" "Then you try again. That's what Mommy used to say. Remember?" Sophie leaned her head against his chest. "Take it, Daddy. Please. It'll make you smile with your eyes again." And in that moment, Ethan made his decision. Not for himself, not for the money, not even for the truth about Sarah. For Sophie. For the little girl who deserved to see her father's eyes smile again. The next morning, Ethan called the number on Clara Hayes' business card. She answered on the first ring. "Mr. Cole, have you made your decision?" "I have questions first," Ethan said. "About Sarah, about what you found. I need to know everything." "Come to my office Monday morning. I'll tell you everything I know. I'll show you the files, and then we'll find out the rest together." Clara paused. "Is that a yes?" Ethan looked at Sophie eating breakfast across the room, her eyes bright with hope for the first time in years. "When do I start?" He could hear Clara smiling through the phone. "Welcome to Caldwell Innovations, Mr. Cole. Your life just got a lot more complicated." "Good," Ethan said. "I'm tired of simple." What he didn't know was that across the city in a dark office someone else was making a phone call too. "The janitor survived," a voice said. "And Hayes hired him. They're going to figure it out." "Then we move up the timeline," another voice replied. "Cole and Hayes both need to disappear, permanently, before they find the connection." "What about the girl Sophie?" A long pause. Then coldly, "Do what needs to be done. No witnesses, no evidence, no mercy." The line went dead. And somewhere in that small apartment in Pilsen, Sophie Cole laughed at something on TV, completely unaware that the monsters who'd killed her mother were now coming for her father. And for her. Monday morning arrived with the kind of sunshine that felt like a lie. Ethan stood outside Caldwell Tower in his new clothes, cheap but clean, and tried to remember how to breathe. Sophie had insisted on walking him to Mrs. Chen's before school, her small hand gripping his like she was afraid he'd disappear. "You look like a real engineer now, Daddy," she'd said at the door. "I am a real engineer," he'd replied, trying to convince himself as much as her. Now staring up at 40 stories of glass and steel, Ethan wasn't so sure. The last time he'd been here, he'd been invisible. A man with a mop. Now he was walking through the front doors like he belonged, and every eye in the lobby turned to watch. Marcus Webb was waiting by the security desk. "Mr. Cole, welcome. Ms. Hayes is expecting you upstairs, but first we need to get you through security protocols." 20 minutes of badges, fingerprints, and retinal scans later, Ethan found himself in an elevator rising toward the executive floor. His reflection in the polished doors showed a man who looked terrified. "Relax," Marcus said without looking at him. "You've already proven you belong here. Now you just have to convince everyone else." "That's supposed to make me feel better." "No, it's supposed to make you sharper." The elevator dinged. 40th floor. "One more thing, Mr. Cole. Ms. Hayes asked me to tell you that after your meeting with her, you'll be working on the 15th floor, R&D division. Same place you fixed the prototype." Ethan's stomach dropped. The same floor where someone tried to sabotage it. Exactly. Ms. Hayes thinks whoever it was works in that department. She wants you close, watching, learning. Marcus's expression was unreadable. "She also wants you to know that I'll have eyes on you at all times. Cameras, security. If anything feels wrong, you signal me immediately." "How do I signal you?" Marcus handed him a small pin silver with the Caldwell logo. "Wear this on your shirt. Press it twice quick. I'll be there in 90 seconds. The elevator doors opened onto Clara Hayes' office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, lake views, furniture that probably cost more than Ethan's entire apartment building. Clara sat behind a desk that looked like it belonged in a museum, her arms still in a sling, but her eyes sharp as ever. "Mr. Cole, right on time." She gestured to the chair across from her. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified, grateful, confused." Ethan sat down. "You said you'd tell me everything about Sarah, about what you found." "Straight to business. I respect that." Clara pulled out a tablet, tapped it, handed it to him. "These are medical records. 4 women, ages 28 to 36. All developed the same rare form of aggressive cancer. All died within 18 months of diagnosis. All received the same experimental treatment protocol." Ethan's hands shook as he scrolled through the files. Sarah's name was third on the list. "What treatment protocol?" 5 years ago, Caldwell Innovations had a pharmaceutical division. We were developing targeted cancer therapies. Experimental, cutting edge, very expensive. Clara's voice was steady, but something dark flickered in her eyes. "The project was led by Dr. Marcus Vance. Brilliant researcher. Ambitious. Maybe too ambitious." "What does this have to do with Sarah?" "Your wife was part of a clinical trial. So were these other 3 women. The therapy was supposed to save them. Instead, it killed them. Faster and more painfully than the cancer would have." Clara paused. When I found out what Vance had done, I shut down the entire pharmaceutical division, fired him, paid out settlements to the families under NDAs. I thought that was the end of it. Ethan couldn't breathe. Sarah was in a trial. She never told me about any trial. Because the consent forms were forged, the medical records were altered. These women thought they were getting standard treatment. They had no idea they were guinea pigs. Clara's jaw tightened. Vance was experimenting on dying patients without their knowledge. And when I found out, I buried it. Paid everyone off. Protected the company's reputation. The words hit Ethan like physical blows. You knew. You knew someone killed my wife and you covered it up. Yes. The admission hung in the air like poison. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Clara continued. I'm asking you to help me make it right, because I think Vance is back, and I think he's working here under a different name trying to finish what he started. Why would he come back? Because the prototype you fixed, the water purification system. It uses the same core technology as his cancer therapy, same molecular filtration process, same chemical compounds. Clara leaned forward. I think Vance has been hiding in my company for years waiting. And when he saw you fix that prototype, he realized someone might make the connection between the water system and his old research. So he tried to kill us both. Ethan stood up his chair, scraping against the floor. This is insane. You're telling me my wife was murdered 5 years ago, you covered it up, and now the man who killed her is working here and trying to kill me? Yes. And you want me to just work here like nothing's wrong, pretend everything's fine? No. Clara stood too, her voice sharp. I want you to work here and find him. I want you to identify which of my engineers is actually Marcus Vance. I want you to gather evidence, and then I want you to help me destroy him. Why me? Why not the police? Because I have no proof. The old records were destroyed. The NDAs prevent the families from talking. And Vance has covered his tracks perfectly. He's using a new identity, new credentials, new face probably. Clara's eyes locked onto his. But he made one mistake. He doesn't know that you're an engineer. He thinks you're just a janitor who got lucky. He doesn't know you can understand the science. Follow the research. See the patterns. You want me to be bait. I want you to be a weapon. A smart, motivated weapon who has every reason to want Vance exposed. Clara moved closer. Your wife deserves justice, Mr. Cole. And so do those other 3 women. Help me give it to them. Ethan's mind was racing. Sarah's face, her pain, the way she'd withered away while doctors fed her poison disguised as hope. And now he knew. Someone had done that deliberately. Someone had watched her die and called it science. What if I find him? Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. What if I identify Vance? Then what? Then we bring him down. Publicly. Completely. We make sure everyone knows what he did. And we make sure he never hurts anyone again. That's not justice. That's revenge. Sometimes, Clara said quietly. They're the same thing. Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then he pinned the security badge to his shirt. Where do I start? Clara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Dr. Chen is waiting for you on the 15th floor. She runs the R&D division. Brilliant engineer, good person. But she has 14 people on her team, and one of them is a murderer. She handed him a folder. These are personnel files. Study them, learn their backgrounds, watch them, and trust no one. Do I trust you? No, Clara said simply. Don't trust anyone, not even me. Because I've already proven I'll do terrible things to protect this company. Remember that. The 15th floor was nothing like Ethan remembered. When he'd cleaned here at night, it had been quiet, empty, full of shadows. Now it was alive with noise and motion. Engineers hunched over workstations. Machines hummed. Voices called out calculations and corrections. And every single person stopped what they were doing to stare at him when he walked in. Dr. Anna Chen approached with a warm smile and tired eyes. She was maybe 50, gray streaking through her black hair, wearing a lab coat covered in coffee stains and chemical burns. "You must be Ethan Cole. Welcome to Chaos." She shook his hand firmly. "Clara told me about you. Said you fixed the H2O prototype in 5 minutes. Very impressive." "I just saw what was wrong and adjusted it. Anyone could have—" "No," Dr. Chen interrupted gently. "They couldn't have. We have PhDs on this team who couldn't see what you saw. That's why you're here, because you think differently." She gestured around the lab. "Let me introduce you to everyone. Try not to be intimidated. Half of them are brilliant. The other half just think they are." The first person Ethan met was James Ridley. Tall, polished, expensive suit even in the lab. He looked at Ethan the way someone looks at dirt on their shoe. "So you're the janitor Clara's charity case?" James said, not quite sneering, but close. "How nice that you could join us. I'm sure you'll fit right in." "James," Dr. Chen's voice held warning. "Be professional." "I am being professional. Professionally skeptical that someone with no advanced degree and no real experience belongs on this team." James turned back to his workstation. "But I'm sure he'll prove me wrong. Any day now." Heat flushed Ethan's face, but Dr. Chen touched his arm. "Ignore him. James is brilliant with computers, but terrible with humans. You'll get used to it." "Or I could just punch him," Ethan muttered. Dr. Chen laughed. "I like you already. Come on, I'll show you the rest." Zoe Martinez was everything James wasn't. Young, maybe 25, with purple streaks in her hair and a smile that took up half her face. She bounded over like an excited puppy. "Oh my God, you're the guy who saved Ms. Hayes. That was incredible. I saw the news footage, and I was like, who is this hero with the bleeding hands and the torn suit? And now you're here on our team." She stuck out her hand. "I'm Zoe, lab tech, also the person who makes sure the coffee machine doesn't explode and that James doesn't poison himself with his own experiments." "Nice to meet you," Ethan said, finding himself smiling despite everything. "Zoe is also the heart of this team," Dr. Chen added. "She keeps us all sane." "Someone has to," Zoe said cheerfully, then quieter. "But seriously, we're glad you're here. This place has been weird lately. Tense. Like everyone's waiting for something bad to happen." "Weird how?" Ethan asked. Zoe glanced at Dr. Chen, who nodded slightly. "Equipment going missing, files getting corrupted. Small stuff, but it's been happening for months. And then the brake line thing with Ms. Hayes." She lowered her voice. "We all know that wasn't an accident. So having someone new here, someone she trusts, it feels safer somehow." Over the next hour, Ethan met the rest of the team. There was David Park, quiet and intense, who barely looked up from his calculations. Sarah Wu, sharp and efficient, who asked Ethan 3 technical questions before deciding he was competent. Marcus Thompson, older grandfatherly, who welcomed him warmly. And 6 others, all smart, all busy, all potential suspects. By lunch, Ethan's head was spinning with names and faces, and the crushing weight of knowing one of these people had killed his wife. Dr. Chen led him to a small office. "This is yours. Not much, but it's private. You'll be working on water purification systems primarily, but Clara said you have some freedom to explore other projects too." She paused at the door. "Can I give you some advice?" "Please. This team is brilliant but fragile. We've lost people over the years. Budget cuts, politics, burnout. The ones who are left, they're loyal to each other, protective. If you come in here trying to expose someone, they'll close ranks." Dr. Chen's eyes were kind but serious. "Be patient, build trust, and watch everything." "Dr. Chen, can I ask you something?" "Anna, call me Anna." "Anna, 5 years ago, did you know Dr. Marcus Vance?" Her expression shifted, closed off. "Clara told you about that. She told me he might be here, working under a new name." Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then Marcus Vance was one of the most brilliant researchers I've ever met, and one of the most dangerous. He believed the ends justified any means, that progress required sacrifice, that ethics were obstacles. She looked directly at Ethan. If he's here, if he's on this team, then we're all in danger. Because he won't stop. He never stops. Did you work with him? Briefly, before Clara shut down the pharmaceutical division. I helped develop some of the early technology that he later corrupted. Anna's voice was heavy with guilt. I didn't know what he was doing to those patients. I swear I didn't know. By the time I found out, they were already dead. Sarah Cole was one of them, Ethan said quietly. Anna's face went pale. Your wife? Yes. Oh my God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. If I had known, if I had seen what he was doing sooner. It's not your fault, but I need your help. I need to figure out who on this team is actually Vance, and I need to do it before he tries to kill someone else. Anna nodded slowly. I'll help you, but we have to be careful. If Vance realizes we're onto him, he'll disappear, or worse. She pulled out her phone, showed him a photo. This is what Vance looked like 5 years ago, but he could have had surgery, changed everything. The photo showed a man in his 40s, thin, sharp features, cold eyes. Ethan studied it, trying to imagine that face altered, disguised, hidden behind someone else's smile. I'll figure it out, Ethan said. I know you will. Because you're not just here for justice, are you? You're here for your daughter, to make sure the man who killed her mother can't hurt anyone else. Anna squeezed his shoulder. That makes you more dangerous than Vance realizes, and that might be exactly what we need. The afternoon passed in a blur of technical briefings and project overviews. Ethan tried to focus, tried to absorb the information, but his mind kept circling back to the personnel files in his office. 14 people, 1 murderer, and no way to know which was which. By 5 p.m., most of the team had left. Ethan stayed late telling himself he was catching up on work, but really studying faces, voices, mannerisms. Looking for something, anything that felt wrong. He was alone in his office reviewing files when his phone buzzed. Sophie calling from Mrs. Chen's. Hey baby, everything okay? Daddy, when are you coming home? Sophie's voice was small, worried. Soon, sweetheart, I just have a little more work to finish. There's a man outside Mrs. Chen's building. He's been there for an hour, just standing there, watching. Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. I think he's watching for you. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Sophie put Mrs. Chen on the phone, right now. Mrs. Chen's voice came through, concerned. Ethan, what's wrong? There's a man outside your building. Sophie says he's been there for an hour. I need you to lock all the doors and windows right now. Don't let anyone in. I'm calling security. Ethan, you're scaring me. Good. Be scared. Keep Sophie away from the windows. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and pressed the security pin twice, hard. Marcus Webb appeared in his doorway 90 seconds later, exactly as promised. What's wrong? Someone's watching my daughter. At Mrs. Chen's apartment. We need to get there now. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, made 3 rapid calls, then grabbed Ethan's arm. Come on. I have a car downstairs. I'm also sending a security team to the apartment. They'll be there in 10 minutes. They ran for the elevator. As the doors closed, Marcus said, Describe the man. I didn't see him. My daughter did. She said he's been standing outside for an hour, just watching. That's not surveillance. That's a message. Marcus's jaw was tight. Vance is telling you he knows about Sophie. He's showing you that he can get to her anytime he wants. The words made Ethan's vision blur with rage. If he touches her, he won't. Not if we get there first. The elevator hit the lobby and they burst out running. But Ethan, you need to understand something. This changes everything. You can't go home. Neither can Sophie. You're both in danger now. Then what do we do? Clara has a safe house, protected location, security. You and Sophie stay there until we identify Vance and neutralize him. For how long? As long as it takes. They were in Marcus's car, tearing through evening traffic, when Ethan's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Hello? Mr. Cole. The voice was distorted, mechanical, impossible to identify. I hope your daughter is enjoying her evening. She looks so peaceful through those windows, so innocent, so vulnerable. Who is this? Ethan's hand shook so hard he almost dropped the phone. You know who this is. You've been looking for me all day, reading files, studying faces. Very thorough. The voice paused. But you're wasting your time. You'll never find me. Because I'm always 3 steps ahead. Always watching. Always waiting. What do you want? I want you to stop. Stop investigating. Stop working with Clara Hayes. Go back to being invisible. Go back to being a janitor who knows his place. Another pause. Or I'll make sure your daughter learns what her mother learned. That progress requires sacrifice. And some sacrifices scream louder than others. The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone, his entire body shaking with rage and terror. He just threatened Sophie. He threatened to do to her what he did to Sarah. Marcus pressed harder on the gas. We're 2 minutes away. Hold on. When they screeched to a stop outside Mrs. Chen's building, the security team was already there. 4 men in dark suits scanning the area, weapons visible. One of them approached Marcus. Area is clear, sir. We found no one matching the description. But we did find this. He held up a small camera, no bigger than a button. Mounted on the streetlight, pointed directly at the building entrance. Someone's been watching this location for at least 48 hours. Ethan didn't wait to hear more. He bolted into the building, took the stairs 3 at a time, and pounded on Mrs. Chen's door. It's me, Ethan, open up. The door flew open, and Sophie launched herself into his arms, crying. Daddy, I was so scared. The man, he looked right at me, right at the window, and he smiled. Ethan held her so tight he was afraid he might hurt her. It's okay, baby, I'm here. You're safe. I'm here. Mrs. Chen stood behind them, pale and shaking. Ethan, what's happening? Who was that man? Someone who wants to hurt my family, but he's not going to, because we're leaving, right now. Ethan looked at Marcus, who stood in the doorway with 2 security guards. Take us to the safe house. Whatever Clara has, wherever it is, take us now. Marcus nodded. Get Sophie's things. You have 5 minutes. While Sophie packed her stuffed animals and favorite books, Ethan knelt down to her level. Baby, we're going to stay somewhere else for a while. Somewhere very safe, with nice people who are going to protect us. Why? Sophie's eyes were too old for 7 years. Who's trying to hurt us? Someone bad. Someone who hurt Mommy. But he's not going to hurt you, I promise. Ethan touched her face. Do you trust Daddy? Always. Then let's go. The safe house was 40 minutes outside the city, hidden behind trees and gates, and enough security to guard a president. It looked like a normal suburban home from the outside, but Marcus showed them the reinforced doors, the bulletproof windows, the panic room in the basement. You'll be safe here, Marcus said. Guards outside 24/7, cameras everywhere, no one gets in without authorization. Sophie explored the house with wide eyes, while Ethan collapsed onto the couch, his hands shaking. Everything had happened so fast. This morning he'd been starting a new job. Tonight, he was hiding his daughter in a safe house from a murderer who'd already killed his wife. Marcus sat down across from him. I need you to tell me everything about that phone call. Every word you remember. Ethan recounted it all. The mechanical voice. The threats. The way Vance had known exactly what Ethan had been doing all day. He's watching you inside the building, Marcus said, which means he has access to security systems, cameras, maybe even audio. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to have tech sweep your office and the entire R&D floor. But Ethan, you need to understand something. This isn't just about finding Vance anymore. This is about keeping you and Sophie alive while we do it. So, what do I do? Hide here forever? No. You go back to work tomorrow. You keep investigating. But now you know he's watching, so you use that. You feed him false information. Lead him where we want him to go. Make him think he's winning. I'm not bait, Ethan said. I'm a father. You're both. And that's what makes you perfect for this. Marcus leaned forward. Vance made a mistake tonight. He revealed himself, showed us he's desperate, scared. That means we're getting close. So we push harder. We make him panic. And when he makes his move, we'll be ready. And if you're not, if he gets to Sophie, he won't. I'll die before I let that happen. And so will every person on my team. Marcus stood. Get some rest. Tomorrow we go hunting. After Marcus left, Ethan tucked Sophie into bed in the safe house's guest room. She held his hand tight, not wanting to let go. Daddy, are we going to be okay? Yes, baby, I promise. Do you promise with your eyes? Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to make his eyes show something other than fear. I promise with everything I have. Sophie studied his face for a long moment. Then quietly, You're lying. Your eyes are scared. He couldn't help it. He laughed, even though nothing was funny. You're too smart for your own good. Mommy used to say that too. Sophie's voice got smaller. Is the bad man the same person who hurt Mommy? Ethan's throat closed. He'd never told her the truth about Sarah's death, never explained that it wasn't just cancer, that someone had deliberately poisoned her. But Sophie was 7, and she'd already lost so much. How much more truth could she carry? Yes, he said finally. The same person. Are you going to stop him? Yes. Are you going to hurt him? Sophie's eyes were wide, curious, not afraid. I don't know, baby. Maybe. Good, Sophie said simply. Because he hurt Mommy, and now he's trying to hurt us, and that's not fair. No, Ethan thought. It's not fair at all. But fair didn't matter anymore. Only survival did, and justice. And making sure the man who'd destroyed his family couldn't destroy anyone else's. Tomorrow he'd go back to Caldwell Tower, back to the 15th floor, back to the killer hiding in plain sight. And this time, he wouldn't be invisible. This time, he'd be hunting. Sophie was still asleep when Ethan left the safe house at dawn, her small hand clutching the stuffed rabbit Sarah had given her years ago. He'd kissed her forehead, whispered promises he wasn't sure he could keep, and walked out into the cold morning air feeling like his chest might crack open. Marcus was waiting in the car, 2 cups of coffee in the holder between them. How'd she sleep? Better than I did. Ethan climbed in, took the coffee, burned his tongue on the first sip. Did your tech team find anything? 3 cameras in the R&D division that shouldn't be there. Hidden in air vents behind equipment. Professional grade. Been there for months, maybe longer. Marcus pulled onto the highway. We left them in place. If Vance is watching through them, we don't want him to know we found them. But we're monitoring what he sees, controlling the narrative. You mean using me as bait? I mean giving you a weapon. You know he's watching now, so you perform. You make mistakes on purpose. You leave files open. You have conversations where he can hear them. You lead him exactly where we want him to go. Ethan stared out the window at the city, waking up at people driving to normal jobs with normal problems. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not smart enough to outsmart him? You already outsmarted him once. Wednesday night when you fixed that prototype. He didn't see you coming because he thought you were invisible. Marcus glanced at him. That's still your biggest advantage. He thinks you're just a janitor playing engineer. He doesn't know what you're really capable of. Neither do I. Then I guess we're about to find out. The R&D floor was already buzzing when Ethan arrived. Zoe bounced over with her usual energy, holding out a donut with pink frosting. Morning, I brought breakfast because Anna said you were working late yesterday, and I figured you probably didn't eat. And also, I heard about what happened to Ms. Hayes. And that's so scary. And are you okay? Because you look really tired and—" She stopped, took a breath. "Sorry, I talk a lot when I'm nervous." "Why are you nervous?" Ethan took the donut. "Because someone cut Ms. Hayes's brake lines, and that's attempted murder. And now you're here, and you saved her life, and what if whoever did it comes after you next?" Zoe's eyes were wide, worried. "I know I sound paranoid, but this place has been weird for months, and I just have this feeling that something bad is going to happen." "What kind of weird?" Ethan kept his voice casual, but his pulse quickened. Zoe glanced around, lowered her voice. "Equipment going missing. Files getting corrupted like I mentioned yesterday. But also weird stuff. Like David's prototype disappeared for 3 days and then reappeared with different components. Sarah found chemical compounds in her workspace that she never ordered. James's computer got hacked twice in 1 month." She twisted her hands together. "And Marcus Thompson, the older guy, he had a breakdown last month. Just started crying at his desk. Said something about not being able to live with the guilt anymore. Anna sent him home for a week." Ethan's mind raced. Marcus Thompson, the grandfatherly engineer who'd welcomed him warmly. Did he say what he felt guilty about? No. And when he came back, he acted like nothing happened. But I heard him on the phone once late at night. He was arguing with someone. He said, "I did what you asked, but I'm done. I won't help you anymore." Zoe's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "What if he's involved in whatever's going on?" Before Ethan could respond, James Ridley appeared, coffee in hand, smirk on his face. "Well, well. The charity case returns. Tell me, did Clara give you a motivational speech about believing in yourself? Or did she just throw money at you and hope it sticks?" "Good morning, James," Ethan said evenly. "Is it though good?" James leaned against the workstation. "Because from where I'm standing, we've got an unqualified janitor taking up space while the rest of us do actual work. But hey, at least you're good at pulling people from burning cars. Very impressive party trick." "James, seriously, shut up," Zoe snapped. "Why?" "Because I'm stating the obvious. This whole thing is ridiculous. Clara's playing some kind of social justice game, hiring the poor, unfortunate janitor to make herself feel better about being rich." James turned back to Ethan. "No offense, but you don't belong here, and everyone knows it." "Then why are you so threatened?" Ethan asked quietly. James's smirk faltered. "Excuse me. If I'm just an unqualified janitor who doesn't belong here, why do you care so much? Why do you need to remind me every chance you get?" Ethan stepped closer. "Unless maybe you're worried I might actually be good at this, that I might see things you can't see, solve problems you can't solve, make you look bad. You arrogant—" "Enough!" Anna Chen's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She stood in her office doorway, arms crossed. "James, my office, now. Ethan, you too." They followed her in. Anna shut the door, turned to face them with an expression that would have frozen water. "I don't have time for whatever macho posturing this is," she said. "We have deadlines, we have work, and we have a team that's supposed to function like adults, not kindergarteners." She looked at James. "You've been hostile to Ethan since he arrived. Why?" "Because this is a joke. We don't need him here." "That's not your decision to make. It's mine and Clara's, and we both believe Ethan has valuable skills." Anna's eyes narrowed. "But your behavior makes me wonder. Are you threatened by new team members? Or is there something else going on?" James's face flushed red. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've noticed things. Files you've been accessing that aren't related to your projects. Late nights in the lab when everyone else is gone. Conversations that stop when people walk by." Anna's voice was steel. "So, I'm asking you directly, James. Is there something you want to tell me?" For a moment, Ethan thought James might confess something. His face went pale. His hands shook slightly. Then the mask slammed back into place. I've been working on side projects. Personal research, nothing relevant to Caldwell. James straightened his shoulders. And I resent the implication that I'm doing something wrong. I'm one of the most productive members of this team. Then prove it by acting like it. Anna opened the door. Both of you get back to work. And James, if I hear you being hostile to Ethan again, we're going to have a much longer conversation with HR present. James stormed out without another word. Anna waited until he was gone, then turned to Ethan. Are you okay? Yeah, I've dealt with worse than James Ridley. I know. That's not what I'm asking. Anna closed the door again, her expression softening. Marcus called me last night, told me about the threat to Sophie, about the safe house, about everything. She sat down heavily. This is my fault. I should have seen the signs sooner, should have realized Vance was still here. You couldn't have known. I worked with him, Ethan. I knew what he was capable of, and I did nothing. Her voice cracked. Those women died because I was too afraid to speak up, too afraid to risk my career by questioning his methods. And now he's threatening your daughter, and I can't just stand by again. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to help you catch him, really help. Not just provide information, but actively investigate. Anna pulled out a drawer, showed him a locked box. These are old files, from the pharmaceutical division. I kept copies before everything was destroyed. Research notes, chemical formulas, patient records. Everything Clara paid to Barry. Ethan's hands shook as he reached for the box. Why did you keep them? Because I knew someday the truth would come out. And when it did, I wanted to be able to prove what really happened. Anna's eyes met his. Sarah's records are in here. Everything Vance did to her. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry I didn't stop him sooner. Ethan opened the box. Inside were dozens of files meticulously organized. He found Sarah's name pulled out the folder, and his vision blurred with tears. There she was, his wife, reduced to patient number 27. Lab results, treatment protocols, and notes in a handwriting he didn't recognize. Subject shows promising response to compound X7. Increasing dosage despite elevated toxicity markers. Patient complaints of severe pain dismissed as expected side effects. Proceeding to phase 3. The words made his stomach turn. They'd tortured her, called it science, watched her suffer and taken notes. I need to find him, Ethan said, his voice hollow. I need to look him in the eye and ask him why. Why Sarah? Why those other women? What was worth their lives? Then let's start looking. Anna pulled out a laptop. These files contain chemical signatures, specific compounds Vance used in his research, compounds that shouldn't exist in any current Caldwell projects. But if he's here working under a new identity, he might be using similar compounds. We can trace them. How? Every engineer on this floor orders supplies through a centralized system. Every chemical, every component, everything is logged and tracked. Anna started typing. If someone is ordering compounds similar to Vance's old research, it'll show up in the database. We just have to look. They spent the next 3 hours combing through supply orders, cross-referencing chemical formulas, looking for patterns. It was tedious work made worse by the knowledge that Vance was watching them through hidden cameras. Ethan had to be careful, had to make it look like he was doing normal engineering work while actually hunting a killer. Around noon, Anna made a sound, a sharp intake of breath. What? Ethan leaned over to look at her screen. This order, from 6 months ago. Compound X7. The same one Vance used on Sarah. Anna scrolled through the details. It was ordered under a routine materials request, buried in a list of 50 other chemicals, easy to miss unless you knew what to look for. Who ordered it? Anna clicked through to the requisition form. The name on the order made Ethan's blood run cold. David Park. the quiet, intense engineer who barely spoke to anyone, who worked alone in the corner, who'd had a prototype mysteriously disappear and reappear with different components. "It could be a coincidence," Anna said, but her voice said she didn't believe it. "Or it's him. Vance is David Park." Ethan stood up, his heart pounding. "We need to tell Marcus. Get security. Arrest him before—" "Before what?" Anna grabbed his arm. "We have one chemical order from 6 months ago. That's not enough for an arrest. We need more. We need proof that David Park is actually Marcus Vance." "Then how do we get proof?" "We confront him, carefully. We ask questions that only Vance would know how to answer, and we watch his reaction." Anna's expression was grim. "But Ethan, if we're wrong, if David is innocent and the real Vance is someone else, we've just tipped our hand. He'll know we're onto him. And if we're right and we wait, he might kill someone else." Ethan looked across the lab at David Park, hunched over his workstation headphones on, completely absorbed in whatever he was working on. "I'm done waiting. I'm done being careful. My wife is dead because people were too careful to act." "Then let's do this smart." Anna pulled out her phone, texted Marcus. "Security will be on standby. If things go wrong, they'll be here in seconds. But we need to be strategic. Make him think he's safe. Make him comfortable." They walked across the lab together. David didn't notice them approaching until Anna tapped his shoulder. He jumped, yanked off his headphones, spun around with wide eyes. "Sorry," Anna said with a smile. "Didn't mean to startle you. Do you have a minute? Ethan and I have some questions about the water purification project." David's eyes darted between them. "Sure. What kind of questions?" "Technical ones. About the filtration compounds we're using." Anna kept her voice light, casual. Ethan was looking at the old pharmaceutical research and noticed some similarities between the cancer therapy compounds and our current water system. "We wanted to pick your brain since you've been working with these materials." Something flickered in David's expression. Fear, guilt. It was gone too quickly to tell. "I don't know anything about pharmaceutical research," David said carefully. "My background is environmental engineering." "Of course, but you did order compound X7 6 months ago. That's a pharmaceutical-grade chemical. Why would you need it for water purification?" Ethan kept his voice neutral, but his hands were clenched at his sides. David went very still. "I don't remember ordering that." "It's in the system, logged under your name. Requisition Form 739. Anna pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. "See? Right there." David stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. A short, bitter sound. "You think I'm Vance," he said quietly. "You actually think I'm Marcus Vance." The words hung in the air like a grenade. "Are you?" Ethan asked. "No. But I know who he is." David looked around the lab, making sure no one else was listening. "I figured it out 3 months ago. The supply orders, the late-night lab access, the way certain projects kept getting sabotaged." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "It's not me, but I've been trying to gather proof. That order for compound X7. I didn't place it. Someone used my credentials to order it. Someone who has access to the entire system." "Who?" Anna demanded. David's eyes moved across the lab, past Zoe, who was calibrating equipment, past Sarah Wu, who was arguing with someone on the phone, past James Ridley, who was staring at his computer screen with intense focus. They landed on someone Ethan hadn't expected. Marcus Thompson, the grandfatherly engineer, the one who'd had a breakdown, the one Zoe had heard arguing on the phone saying he wouldn't help anymore. "Marcus Thompson has administrative access to the supply system," David said. "He's been here since before the pharmaceutical division shut down. He worked directly with Vance back then, and 3 months ago I saw him in the lab late at night working on something he immediately hid when I walked in." "Why didn't you report this?" Anna asked. "Because I wasn't sure, and because I was scared." David's voice shook. "My prototype didn't disappear by accident. Someone took it and returned it with a tracking device inside. Someone wanted to monitor what I was working on. When I realized it, I kept quiet, pretended I didn't notice, because I didn't want to end up like Ms. Hayes with cut brake lines in a burning car. Ethan looked across the lab at Marcus Thompson, the kind older man who'd welcomed him warmly, who'd seemed so genuine, who'd had a breakdown and cried about guilt. "We need to test him," Ethan said. "If he's really Vance, he'll know things about the old research that Marcus Thompson wouldn't know. We ask him questions, see how he reacts." "And if you're wrong," David asked, "if it's not him, then we keep looking. But my gut says you're right." Ethan started walking toward Marcus's workstation before he could talk himself out of it. Marcus looked up as they approached, his expression open and friendly. "Ethan? How's the first week going? I've been meaning to check in with you, but things have been hectic." "It's going well. Actually, I wanted to ask you something about the old pharmaceutical division." Ethan kept his voice casual. "Anna mentioned you worked there before it shut down. What was that like?" Marcus's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Oh, that was years ago. Different time. Different work." "What kind of work exactly?" Ethan pressed. "Cancer research mostly. We were trying to develop targeted therapies. It was cutting-edge stuff, but ultimately it didn't pan out." Marcus turned back to his computer. "Why do you ask?" "Because I found something interesting in the old files. Compound X7. The same compound we're using in the water purification system now. But it was originally developed for cancer treatment, wasn't it?" Marcus's hand stilled on the keyboard. "I wouldn't know. That wasn't my area." "But you worked in the pharmaceutical division. You must have known about it." Anna stepped closer. "You must have known Dr. Marcus Vance." The name hit like a physical blow. Marcus's entire body tensed. His face went pale. And for just a second, Ethan saw it. The mask slipping. The cold calculation beneath the grandfatherly warmth. "I knew of him," Marcus said carefully, "but we weren't close." "Really? Because I have files that say you co-authored 3 papers with him, that you were his primary research assistant, that you helped develop the protocols he used on his patients." Anna's voice was hard now. "So let me ask you again, Marcus. What do you know about Compound X7? Marcus stood up slowly. He was a big man, taller than Ethan had realized, and there was something threatening in the way he moved now. The kindly grandfather was gone. In his place was something dangerous. "You should be very careful with what you're accusing me of," Marcus said quietly. "I'm not accusing you of anything. Yet." Anna crossed her arms. "But I am asking direct questions, and your refusal to answer them is making me very suspicious. I think I should speak with HR before continuing this conversation." Marcus reached for his phone. That's when Ethan saw it. A flash of something on Marcus's computer screen before he closed the laptop. A chemical formula. And next to it, a photo. A photo of Sophie taken yesterday outside Mrs. Chen's building. Rage exploded in Ethan's chest like a bomb. "That's my daughter. On your computer, that's my daughter." Marcus's expression shifted, hardened. "So what if it is? Why do you have a photo of her?" Ethan's voice rose, attracting attention from other engineers. "Why were you watching her?" "I wasn't. That photo must have been from when you were standing outside her building yesterday. When you called me and threatened her. When you told me you'd make her scream like her mother did." Ethan was moving now, closing the distance between them. "It's you. You're Vance. You've been here the whole time, hiding behind a fake name and a fake face." Marcus didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled. A cold, calculated smile that made Ethan's skin crawl. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for," Marcus said. Or should I say Vance said. "Yes, I helped him. I was his assistant. His partner. And when Clara shut everything down, when she destroyed years of research because she was too weak to understand that progress requires sacrifice, I helped Vance disappear. Gave him a new identity. Brought him back into Caldwell under a new name." "Where is he?" Anna demanded. "Where is Vance now?" "Closer than you think," Marcus said. And then he did something that made Ethan's blood freeze. He pressed a button on his phone. Just one button. And across the lab something started beeping. A device attached to the water purification prototype. The one Ethan had fixed. The one that was supposed to help people. "I upgraded your prototype," Marcus said calmly. "Added a few modifications. Compound X7 mixed with a catalyzing agent. When that device reaches critical temperature in about 90 seconds, it's going to release a cloud of toxic gas that will kill everyone on this floor. Everyone except me because I took the antidote an hour ago." "You're insane," Anna breathed. "I'm efficient. I'm cleaning up loose ends. All of you have been getting too close to the truth, so I'm erasing the problem." Marcus was backing toward the emergency exit now. "Don't bother trying to disarm it. The device is locked with biometric security. Only Vance's fingerprints can stop it, and Vance isn't here." He slammed through the exit door and was gone. The beeping was getting faster now. People were starting to notice, starting to ask questions. Ethan ran to the prototype, saw the device Marcus had mentioned. A small black box wired into the system counting down. 70 seconds. "Everybody out," Anna was shouting. "Evacuate now. This is not a drill." People scrambled for the exits. Zoe grabbed her laptop. Sarah Wu was helping David Park gather critical files. James Ridley ran past without looking back. The lab emptied in seconds, but Ethan didn't run. He stared at the device, at the countdown, at the chemical formula displayed on a small screen. Compound X7, the same poison that killed Sarah, now weaponized to kill everyone else. 60 seconds. "Ethan, we have to go." Anna was pulling at his arm. "We can't stop it." He said it needs Vance's fingerprints. Ethan's mind was racing. But if Marcus is Vance's assistant, if they've been working together this whole time, then Marcus must have access. He wouldn't build a bomb he couldn't control. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Marcus lied. This device doesn't need Vance's fingerprints. It needs someone who knows the chemical formula. Someone who understands the compound well enough to reverse it." 50 seconds. Ethan's hands flew across the device looking for an access panel. Found it. Pried it open with a screwdriver from a nearby workbench. Inside was a manual override, a keypad asking for a chemical formula. "Anna, I need the molecular structure of compound X7. Now." She pulled out her phone, found the file, rattled off numbers and letters. Ethan punched them in. Wrong code. Error message. The beeping got faster. 40 seconds. "It's not working." Ethan's hands were shaking. "Try the inverted formula. The antidote structure." Anna was scrolling frantically. "Maybe that's what it needs." She read off another sequence. Ethan entered it. Wrong code. 30 seconds. "We have to run," Anna screamed. "Ethan, please!" But Ethan was thinking about Sarah, about the way she'd suffered, about the notes in her file that said, "Patient complaints dismissed as expected side effects," about how Vance had watched her die and called it data. 20 seconds. And then it hit him. The answer wasn't in the formula. It was in the reversal. Vance had created compound X7 to kill. But what if there was a way to neutralize it? Not with an antidote, but with the opposite reaction. He grabbed a container of sodium hydroxide from the shelf, poured it directly into the device's chemical chamber. The reaction was immediate. The device hissed, smoked, and the countdown stopped at 15 seconds. The beeping died. The lab fell silent. Ethan collapsed to his knees, his whole body shaking. "Oh my God!" Anna was beside him in an instant, checking the device, making sure it was really disarmed. "How did you know that would work?" "I didn't. I guessed." Ethan's voice came out as a laugh that was half sob. "I just remembered basic chemistry. Acid meets base. Neutralization. I figured if the compound was acidic in nature, flooding it with a base might stop the reaction." "You figured. You guessed." Anna pulled him to his feet. "You just saved everyone's lives by guessing." Before Ethan could respond, Marcus Webb burst through the door with 6 security guards' weapons drawn. Where is he? Where's Thompson? Gone. Emergency exit. He's Marcus Vance's assistant. He built a bomb. Tried to kill everyone. Ethan pointed at the device. And he said Vance is closer than we think. That Vance is here, in this building. Marcus was already on his radio calling for building lockdown. Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. We're searching every floor. But Ethan's mind was racing. Marcus Thompson had said Vance was closer than they thought. He'd said it with such certainty, such confidence, because he wasn't talking about location. He was talking about identity. And suddenly, horribly, Ethan understood. The hidden cameras, the sabotaged projects, the way someone always seemed to be 3 steps ahead. The way Clara had known so much about Ethan's life, had found him so quickly after the accident. Vance wasn't hiding in the building. Vance was running it. "Oh God," Ethan whispered. "It's Clara. Clara Hayes is Marcus Vance." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Anna's face went white. Marcus Webb froze mid-radio transmission, and Ethan felt the weight of what he'd just said crushing down on his chest. "Say that again," Marcus said slowly, his hand moving toward his weapon. "Clara Hayes. She's not who she says she is. She's Marcus Vance." Ethan's voice was shaking, but his mind was racing, pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. "Think about it. She knew everything about me before we ever met. She had me investigated within hours of the accident. She knew about Sarah's medical records, about the clinical trial, about details that were supposed to be sealed under NDA. How? Because she was there. She ran that trial." "That's insane," Anna breathed. "Clara shut down the pharmaceutical division. She fired Vance. She paid out settlements." Did she? Or did she stage her own disappearance? Create a new identity? Come back as Clara Hayes, CEO, the hero who cleaned up Vance's mess? Ethan was pacing now, his thoughts tumbling out faster than he could organize them. She's been 3 steps ahead this whole time because she's the one pulling the strings. The car accident wasn't an attempt on her life. It was theater. She needed a reason to bring me in to get me close to control the investigation. "But I've known Clara for 8 years, Anna said. "I've worked with her. She's not Vance. They're completely different people. Are they? Or are you seeing what she wants you to see?" Ethan turned to Marcus Webb. "You do security for her. You must have background files, employment history, something that proves who she really is." Marcus's expression was unreadable. "You're accusing my employer of being a serial killer based on what? A hunch? Based on the fact that she knew things she shouldn't know? Based on the timing? Based on Marcus Thompson saying Vance was closer than we think?" Ethan's voice rose. "She hired me not to catch Vance but to control me. To keep me close where she could watch me. And when I got too close to the truth, Thompson tried to kill everyone in this lab to cover it up." "Or," Marcus Webb said coldly, "you're a janitor playing detective who just had a psychotic break after almost dying in an explosion, which sounds more likely." The words hit Ethan like a slap. "I'm not crazy." "Then prove it. Show me evidence, not theories, not hunches. Actual proof that Clara Hayes is Marcus Vance." Marcus stepped closer, his presence intimidating. "Because if you're wrong, if you just accused an innocent woman of mass murder based on paranoid speculation, you're done. Fired. Possibly arrested for slander. And your daughter goes into foster care while you sort out your mental health." The threat was clear, and it worked. Ethan's certainty wavered. What if he was wrong? What if the stress and fear and grief had twisted his thinking? What if Clara really was just trying to help him? But then he remembered. The phone call. The distorted voice that said, "I'm always 3 steps ahead, always watching." Clara had access to everything. She could have made that call. She could have been watching Sophie. "I want to talk to her," Ethan said. "Face to face. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and resign. But if I'm right, if there's even a chance I'm right, we can't just ignore it." Marcus studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke into his radio. "All units maintain lockdown. Bring Clara Hayes to the R&D floor. Tell her it's urgent. Do not repeat, do not tell her why. They waited in silence. Anna wouldn't look at Ethan. The security guards shifted uncomfortably, and Ethan stood there feeling like he was about to either save everyone or destroy everything. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Clara Hayes stepped out, still wearing her arm sling, her expression concerned but calm. "Marcus, what's going on? I got your message." "Mr. Cole has something he needs to say to you," Marcus said, his tone neutral. Clara's eyes found Ethan. "Are you all right? I heard about the device. About Thompson running. Thank God you're safe." "Safe," Ethan repeated. "That's an interesting word coming from you." Something flickered in Clara's expression. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know who you are. Or rather who you were." Ethan's hands were clenched at his sides. "Marcus Vance, that's your real name, isn't it?" The room went dead silent. Clara stared at him, her face unreadable. Then slowly she started to laugh. Not a nervous laugh, not a defensive laugh, a genuine, almost sad laugh. "Oh, Ethan," she said quietly. "You brilliant, paranoid, absolutely wrong man. Prove it. Prove you're not him. How? What evidence would possibly satisfy you?" Clara moved closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You've convinced yourself I'm the villain because it makes sense to your grief. Because you need someone to blame, and I'm convenient, rich, powerful, in control. So I must be the monster. You knew things you shouldn't know. About Sarah. About the trial. Because I investigated you after you saved my life. Because I needed to understand who you were before I hired you. And yes, I found sealed records. I have resources. That doesn't make me a murderer." Clara's voice was steady, but there was hurt in her eyes. "You think I staged my own car accident? You think I cut my own brake lines and almost died just to manipulate you? Look at me, Ethan. Look at this arm, this sling, these bruises. You pulled me from a burning car. You felt my pulse. You saw me unconscious. Was that fake?" Ethan's certainty was crumbling. "But Thompson said—" "Thompson is a liar. He's Vance's accomplice. He's been covering for him for years." Clara turned to Marcus Webb. "Show him." Marcus pulled out his phone, brought up a file, handed it to Ethan. It was a personnel record for Marcus Thompson. But underneath the current photo was another photo. Older, from 8 years ago. The same face, but younger. And the name underneath wasn't Marcus Thompson. It was Daniel Vance. Marcus Vance's brother. "Thompson isn't his real name," Clara said. "Daniel Vance changed his identity after his brother disappeared. Came to work for me under false pretenses. I didn't know until 3 days ago when Marcus Webb finally finished running background checks on everyone who worked in the pharmaceutical division." Her voice turned bitter. "I was going to fire him this week, but he figured out we were onto him. That's why he tried to kill everyone, to destroy evidence and witnesses before we could expose him." Ethan felt like the floor was tilting. But the phone call, the threat to Sophie, someone said they'd make her scream like her mother did. That's something Vance would say. It's something Daniel would say on Vance's behalf, because his brother is still out there, still alive, still dangerous. Clara's jaw tightened. "And I've been trying to find him for 5 years, trying to make up for the fact that I let him disappear, that I was too weak to turn him into the police, that I paid money and signed NDAs instead of pursuing justice." The guilt in her voice was real, raw. Ethan could hear it, could feel it, and suddenly all his certainty collapsed into shame. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. You thought I was the enemy. I understand why." Clara's expression softened. "You're scared for your daughter. You're grieving your wife. And someone has been manipulating you, feeding your paranoia, pushing you toward the wrong conclusions. That's what Vance does. He makes people doubt everyone trust, no one destroy themselves from the inside out." "So, if Thompson is Daniel Vance's brother, where is the real Marcus Vance?" Anna asked. "That's what we need to find out, and fast. Because Daniel won't stay quiet for long. Clara pulled out her phone. Marcus, get me building security footage from the last 24 hours. Every camera, every floor. If Daniel was working with his brother, there must be evidence of contact. Meetings, phone calls, something. They moved to Anna's office, crowding around her computer, as Marcus Webb pulled up security feeds. Hours of footage compressed into a timeline. They watched Daniel Thompson moving through the building, working in the lab, ordering supplies, talking to colleagues. Normal activities. Nothing suspicious. Until the timestamp hit 11:20 p.m. the night before. Daniel entered the building through a service entrance. Unauthorized access. He went straight to the executive floor, into an office, and 18 minutes later, he left. But the camera angle wasn't quite right to see whose office it was. "Can you enhance that?" Clara demanded. Marcus zoomed in on the door number. Suite 4012. "That's James Ridley's office," Anna said. Ethan's stomach dropped. James. The hostile engineer who'd been antagonizing him since day one. The one with the expensive suits and the condescending attitude. The one who'd been accessing files that weren't related to his projects. "James Ridley," Clara said slowly. "How long has he worked here?" 5 years, Anna replied. "He came highly recommended, MIT credentials, published research, impeccable references." "All of which can be faked," Marcus said grimly. "I'll run a deep background check. Real verification, not just the standard employment screening." While Marcus worked, Ethan's mind was racing. James Ridley. Could he be Marcus Vance? The timeline fit. The hostility toward Ethan made sense if James saw him as a threat. The late nights in the lab, the suspicious file access, the way he'd run from the bomb without helping anyone else. "Got something," Marcus said. "James Ridley's credentials check out on the surface. MIT degree is real. Publications are real. But the references, 2 of them, are from people who died 3 years ago. One is from a professor who has no record of ever teaching at MIT, and his social security number was only issued 5 years ago." "He's using a constructed identity," Clara breathed. "Everything is real but new, built from scratch." Just like Marcus Vance would do after disappearing. Anna pulled up James's personnel file, compared the photo to the old picture of Vance that she'd shown Ethan earlier. The face is different. Plastic surgery, maybe. But the eyes. Look at the eyes. They're the same. She was right. The cold calculation. The way James looked at people like they were problems to solve or obstacles to remove. That was Vance. "We need to bring him in," Marcus said. "Where is he now?" "He evacuated with everyone else when the bomb alarm went off," Anna said. "He should be in the assembly area downstairs." Marcus made the call. 2 minutes later, his radio crackled with bad news. "Sir James Ridley isn't in the assembly area. Multiple witnesses saw him leave the building and get into a vehicle. Black sedan, no plates visible. He's gone." "He ran," Ethan said. "He knows we figured it out." "Or Daniel warned him before we caught him," Clara said. She turned to Marcus Webb. "Where would Vance go if he's been exposed, if he's running? Where's his exit strategy?" "He'd need documents, new identity papers, money, transportation." Marcus was already typing on his phone. "And he'd need to destroy evidence. Anything that connects him to the murders." "Sarah's medical records," Ethan said suddenly. "The original files. Daniel said you kept copies, Anna, but where are the actual hospital records? The official documents?" Anna's face went pale. "They're stored at the University Medical Center, in the research archives. That's where all clinical trial documentation is kept by law. If Vance is running, he'll want those files destroyed," Clara said. "Marcus, get units to the medical center, now." But even as Marcus made the call, Ethan knew they were too late. Vance had been 3 steps ahead this whole time. He wouldn't run without cleaning up first. His phone rang. Unknown number, again. This time, Ethan put it on speaker before answering. "Mr. Cole." the distorted voice said, and now Ethan could hear it. The smugness, the superiority. James Ridley's cadence beneath the electronic disguise. I'm impressed. You actually figured it out. Took you long enough. Where are you, Vance? Clara demanded. Oh, Clara. Sweet, guilty Clara. Still trying to atone for your sins. A laugh, cold and cruel. I'm at the medical center, in the research archives, with about 40 pounds of accelerant and a match. In 5 minutes, every piece of evidence that connects me to those clinical trials will be ash, including Sarah Cole's records, including proof of what I did. You won't get away with this, Ethan said, his voice shaking with rage. I already have. New identity, new life, offshore accounts. I'll be in a country with no extradition treaty by morning. A pause. But before I go, I want you to know something, Mr. Cole. Sarah didn't have to die. The cancer was treatable, manageable. She could have lived for years. But I needed test subjects, and she was so perfectly desperate, so willing to try anything. Her death gave me data. Data that will save thousands of lives once I refine the treatment. So in a way, you should thank me. The words detonated in Ethan's chest like explosives. You killed her for data. You tortured my wife for research. I advanced science. There's a difference. Though I suppose a janitor wouldn't understand that. Another pause. Oh, and Mr. Cole. Tell Sophie I said goodbye. She's a lovely child. So trusting. So easy to photograph. If you'd been a little slower figuring things out, she would have made an excellent test subject too. Children respond so interestingly to compound X7. The line went dead. Ethan didn't remember moving. 1 second he was standing in Anna's office. The next he was running for the elevator, Clara and Marcus Webb shouting behind him. He didn't care, didn't think. All he could see was Sarah's face. All he could hear was Sophie asking, "Are you happy now, Daddy?" He had to stop Vance, had to make him pay, had to end this. The elevator ride down felt like hours. Marcus caught up to him in the lobby, grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Going to the medical center, stopping him. That's my job. You're a civilian. I'm the man whose wife he murdered, and I'm not letting him burn the evidence and walk away. Ethan pulled free. You can come with me or arrest me, but you can't stop me. Clara appeared, breathing hard, her injured arm clutched against her chest. Then we all go, together. We end this together. They took Marcus's car, sirens blaring, cutting through traffic at speeds that should have been terrifying, but just felt too slow. The medical center was 10 minutes away. They had to make it in 5. Marcus was on the radio coordinating with fire department, with police, with building security. Suspect is armed and dangerous. Potential arson in progress. Evacuate all personnel immediately. But Ethan knew it was too late. Vance had planned this. Had backup plans for his backup plans. He'd be gone before they arrived. The files would be ash. Justice would slip away again. Unless Ethan could stop him. They screeched into the medical center parking lot 4 minutes later. Smoke was already visible from the research wing, dark and thick. Fire alarms screamed. People poured out of exits, coughing, panicked. And somewhere in that chaos, Marcus Vance was escaping. Split up, Clara ordered. Marcus coordinate with first responders. Anna help with evacuation. Ethan with me. They ran toward the research wing entrance against the flow of people fleeing. A security guard tried to stop them. Ma'am, you can't go in there. The hell I can't, Clara snapped, pushing past him. The smoke was worse inside, burning Ethan's lungs, making his eyes water. But he kept moving, following the signs toward the archives. Down one corridor, then another. The sprinkler system activated, drenching them, but the smoke meant the fire was already out of control. They found the archives. The heavy door was propped open. Inside, flames climbed the walls, consuming filing cabinets and storage boxes. Years of research burning, and in the center of it all, throwing more accelerant on the flames, was James Ridley. He saw them and smiled. Right on time. I wanted an audience for the finale. It's over, Vance, Clara said. The building is surrounded. You're not walking out of here." "No, watch me." Vance pulled out a gun, pointed it at them. "Though I admit having you both here is convenient. 2 more loose ends to tie up. They'll find your bodies in the fire, tragic accident, and I'll be the grieving colleague who barely escaped. You won't shoot us." Ethan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "You need us to die in the fire to make it look like an accident. Bullet wounds ruin that story." Vance's smile widened. "Smart. You're absolutely right. Which is why I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to make you choose." He gestured to the flames behind him. "In that fire are all of Sarah's medical records, every page of her treatment protocol, every note I took documenting her deterioration, proof of what I did. You can try to save those files, pull them from the flames, preserve the evidence. Or you can try to stop me from leaving. But you can't do both. So choose, Mr. Cole. Justice for your wife. Or revenge for yourself." The choice hit Ethan like a physical blow. Save the evidence or catch the killer. Preserve Sarah's memory or end the man who'd destroyed her. He couldn't do both. Vance was right. There wasn't time. But then Clara moved, fast. She lunged toward the fire, toward the filing cabinets, reaching for Sarah's files with her good arm. "Get him, Ethan. I'll save the records." Clara, no. The heat would kill her. The smoke would collapse her lungs. But she was already pulling files from the flames, ignoring the pain, ignoring the danger. "Go." Ethan turned back to Vance. The gun was still pointed at him, but Vance was backing toward the exit. Touching, but pointless. Those files are already damaged beyond use, and Clara will die trying to save them. So really, I win either way. "No," Ethan said. "You don't." He charged. Not at Vance, but at the filing cabinet behind him. The one Vance had been using to fuel the fire. He grabbed it with both hands and pulled with everything he had. The cabinet toppled forward, metal screaming against tile, 40 years of documents and equipment crashing down. On top of Marcus Vance. The gun flew from his hand. Vance screamed, trapped under the weight, trying to push free. Ethan was on him in seconds, pinning him down, hands around his throat. "You killed her," Ethan said, and his voice was someone else's. Something cold and dark and beyond rage. "You watched my wife die in agony and called it science. You destroyed my family. You threatened my daughter." Vance laughed, even choking. "And you can't kill me, because you're not a killer. You're a hero. That's your weakness." He was right. Even now, even with Vance helpless beneath him, Ethan couldn't do it. Couldn't cross that line. Couldn't become the monster he was fighting. So he leaned close and whispered, "You're right. I'm not a killer. But I am a father. And I will make sure you spend the rest of your life paying for what you did. Every single day. Every single moment. You'll rot in a cell knowing that you lost. That a janitor outsmarted you. That the man you thought was invisible destroyed you." Then he pulled back and punched Vance once hard enough to knock him unconscious. Marcus Webb appeared with fire extinguishers and backup, dragging the filing cabinet off Vance, pulling him from the burning room. And Ethan turned to find Clara collapsed on the floor, her arms full of files, her face covered in soot, her breathing labored but alive. "Did you get them?" Ethan asked, kneeling beside her. "Sarah's records." Clara nodded, unable to speak. She held up a thick folder, scorched but intact. Sarah Cole's complete medical history, every crime Vance had committed, every lie he'd told, every calculation he'd made while she died. Proof. Justice. Finally. The paramedics took Clara out on a stretcher, oxygen mask over her face, but her eyes alert and fierce. They took Vance out in handcuffs, still unconscious, with Marcus Webb and 6 police officers surrounding him. And they took Ethan out with Sarah's files clutched against his chest like a lifeline. Outside in the parking lot, Anna found him. Is he caught? Alive? Going to prison for the rest of his life? Ethan's voice was hollow. It's done. And Clara? Smoke inhalation. Burns on her hands and arms. But alive. Ethan looked at the files in his hands. She saved these. She went into the fire and saved the proof. Anna touched his shoulder. She's trying to make it right, the only way she knows how. It doesn't bring Sarah back. No, but it makes sure Vance can't hurt anyone else. That's something. Anna paused. What happens now? Ethan thought about Sophie safe in the safe house waiting for him, about the job he still had at Caldwell, about the future that had suddenly opened up in front of him like a door he'd thought was locked forever. Now, he said quietly, I keep my promise. I smile with my eyes again. I build a life for Sophie, and I make sure Sarah's death meant something. He looked at the burning building, at the smoke rising into the evening sky, at the end of the nightmare that had consumed him for 5 years. It was finally over, or at least the first chapter was. The safe house felt different when Ethan walked through the door at midnight, lighter somehow despite the darkness. Sophie was asleep on the couch, curled up with her rabbit, Mrs. Chen, dozing in the chair beside her. The moment Ethan stepped inside, Mrs. Chen's eyes flew open. Ethan! Oh, thank God! She stood, took one look at his face covered in soot and ash, and pulled him into a hug. The news said there was a fire at the medical center. I thought, I'm okay, it's over. Ethan's voice cracked on the last word. He's caught. It's really over. Sophie stirred, opened her eyes, saw her father. Daddy! He was across the room in seconds, scooping her up, holding her so tight he was afraid he might break her. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and didn't ask questions, just held on. You smell like smoke, she whispered. I know, baby. I'm sorry. Did you get the bad man? The one who hurt Mommy? Ethan pulled back just enough to see her face. 7 years old and already carrying so much weight. Yes, he can't hurt anyone anymore. Good. Sophie touched his cheek, her tiny hand surprisingly steady. Are you crying? A little bit? Because you're sad. Because I'm relieved. And tired. And so grateful you're safe. He kissed her forehead. I love you more than anything in the whole world. You know that, right? I know, Daddy. You tell me every day. She smiled that gap-toothed smile that made his heart ache. Now can we go home? The safe house is nice, but I miss our apartment, even if the lights don't work sometimes. Ethan laughed the sound half-sob. Yeah, baby, we can go home. But actually, I think the lights will work from now on. Things are going to be different. Better. I promise. Mrs. Chen quietly gathered her things, touched Ethan's shoulder on her way out. I'm so glad you're both safe. If you need anything at all, you know where to find me. After she left, Ethan carried Sophie to the bedroom, tucked her in properly. She was almost asleep when she spoke again, her voice drowsy and small. Daddy, is Mommy proud of us? The question hit him like a fist to the chest. Why do you ask that? Because we caught the man who hurt her. Because you were brave. Because we didn't give up. Sophie's eyes were already closing. I think she's proud. I can feel it sometimes. Like she's still here watching. Ethan's throat closed completely. Yeah, baby. I think she's proud too. He sat beside her bed long after she fell asleep, holding Sarah's medical files in his lap. The evidence of her murder. The proof of Vance's crimes. The documentation of every moment of her suffering. He should have felt victorious. Should have felt like justice had been served. Instead, he just felt tired. And sad. And achingly aware that nothing he did would bring Sarah back. Catching Vance didn't erase the last 3 years. Didn't erase the debt or the poverty or the nights Sophie went to bed hungry. Didn't erase the way Sarah had looked at him in those final weeks, apologizing for being sick, apologizing for dying, apologizing for leaving them alone. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Webb. Clara's stable. 2nd-degree burns on both hands and arms. Smoke inhalation, but lungs are clear. She's asking for you. Northwestern Memorial Room 4012. Ethan looked at Sophie peaceful in sleep, then texted Mrs. Chen. 20 minutes later, he was back in the hospital where this had all started, taking the elevator to the 4th floor, where Clara Hayes lay in a private room that smelled like antiseptic and grief. She was awake when he entered, both hands wrapped in white bandages, an oxygen cannula in her nose. But her eyes were clear and fierce. "You look terrible," she said. "You look worse." Ethan sat in the chair beside her bed. "Thank you. For saving those files. For risking your life for evidence that could have destroyed you too." "It wasn't just evidence. It was the truth." Clara's voice was hoarse from smoke. "And I'm tired of running from the truth. Tired of protecting myself instead of doing what's right." She paused, studying his face. "Did they tell you about Daniel Vance?" "Marcus's brother." "What about him?" "He's cooperating. Fully. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he's giving us everything. Names, dates, locations, other victims we didn't know about, other crimes Vance committed." Clara's eyes were hard. "There were 12 women, Ethan. Not 4. 12. All dead. All test subjects in experiments they never consented to." The number made Ethan's vision swim. 12. "And now, we can give their families answers. Closure. Justice. Because you didn't give up. Because you kept pushing even when everyone told you to stop." Clara shifted in the bed, wincing. "I owe you an apology. When I hired you, I thought I was saving you, giving you a chance. But really, you saved me. From my own cowardice. From my own guilt. You reminded me that some things are worth fighting for even when it costs everything." "I accused you of being a murderer," Ethan said quietly. "I thought you were Vance. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. You were protecting your daughter. I would have done the same." Clara closed her eyes briefly. "But now I need you to do something for me. Something important." "What?" "Keep working at Caldwell. Keep building those water purification systems. Keep being the engineer you were always meant to be." She opened her eyes, locked them onto his. "Because in 3 months we're launching the humanitarian project. Taking the prototype you fixed to communities that need clean water. Puerto Rico, parts of Africa, rural communities in America that have been forgotten. And I need you there, leading the team, making sure we do it right." "Clara, I don't know if I'm ready for—" "Stop." Her voice was sharp despite the hoarseness. "Stop doubting yourself. Stop waiting for permission to be brilliant. Sarah is gone. Vance is caught. The nightmare is over. Now you get to build something beautiful from the ashes. You get to save lives instead of just surviving. That's not a request, Mr. Cole. That's an order from your CEO." Ethan found himself smiling despite everything. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Now get out of here. Go home to your daughter. And Ethan?" Clara's expression softened. "Check your bank account tomorrow. There might be a surprise waiting." He didn't understand until the next morning when he logged into his banking app while Sophie ate cereal at their tiny kitchen table. The screen loaded, and Ethan's heart stopped. Zero balance on Sarah's medical debt. $200,000, paid in full, and a note attached to the transaction. "Fresh starts shouldn't come with old chains. Consider this a bonus for saving my life twice. Once from the fire, once from myself. Use it well. Clara." Ethan sat there staring at the screen, unable to breathe, unable to think. Sophie noticed his face and put down her spoon. "Daddy, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, baby. Everything's right." He showed her the screen, even though she couldn't fully understand what it meant. "Ms. Hayes paid off all our debts. All of Mommy's hospital bills. We're free." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Does that mean we can turn the lights on?" "Yeah, sweetheart. We can turn the lights on." And then Ethan was crying, really crying, letting 3 years of fear and pressure and suffocating debt pour out of him like poison from a wound. Sophie climbed into his lap and held him while he shook. "It's okay, Daddy. You can cry. Crying is brave too. The next 3 months passed in a blur of work and healing and slow tentative hope. Ethan threw himself into the water purification project, working with Anna and Zoe and a new team of engineers who actually respected him. The prototype he'd fixed that Wednesday night became the foundation for a system that could produce clean water for under $200. Mass-producible, sustainable, life-changing. James Ridley. The man who'd been Marcus Vance went to trial. Ethan testified, reading sections of Sarah's medical file into the court record while Vance stared at him with dead eyes. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts. 12 life sentences, no possibility of parole. Daniel Vance got 20 years for accessory to murder and attempted mass murder. When the verdict was read, Ethan felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just a quiet acceptance that justice, while important, couldn't fill the Sarah-shaped hole in his life. Nothing could. But maybe that was okay. Maybe he could learn to live with the hole instead of drowning in it. Sophie started at a new school, part of Caldwell's family program. She made friends, stopped having nightmares, started laughing again in that unself-conscious way children laugh when they feel safe. And every night, Ethan tucked her in and told her one good thing that had happened that day. "Today I solved a problem nobody else could solve," he'd say. Or, "Today Zoe made me laugh so hard coffee came out my nose." Or, "Today I remembered something funny Mommy used to say, and it didn't make me cry." Small victories, but they added up. Clara recovered slowly, her hands healing but scarred. She threw herself back into work with an intensity that worried everyone. But there was something different about her now. Something softer. She smiled more, listened more, stopped working 18-hour days and started leaving at 5 to volunteer at shelters and community centers. Turns out, almost dying puts things in perspective. She told Ethan one day in the lab, "I spent so long building an empire that I forgot why I was building it. Forgot that the point isn't just success, it's impact, making things better, helping people who need help." "Sounds like someone I know," Ethan said. "Yeah, you taught me that. The janitor who stopped to fix a broken prototype without being asked, without expecting anything, just because it needed fixing." Clara smiled, and for once it reached her eyes completely. "That's who I want to be, not the ruthless CEO, the person who fixes broken things." In late August, the humanitarian project launched. They held a press conference where Clara announced Caldwell's commitment to bringing clean water to 100,000 people over the next 5 years. Ethan stood beside her, uncomfortable, in a suit that actually fit, watching reporters take photos and ask questions. "Mr. Cole," one reporter called out, "6 months ago you were a janitor. Now you're leading a humanitarian engineering project. How does that feel?" Ethan thought about it, really thought. "It feels like I got a second chance, and I'm trying not to waste it." 2 weeks later, Ethan and Clara flew to Puerto Rico with a team of engineers and volunteers. The hurricane damage was still visible everywhere. Destroyed homes, flooded streets, communities struggling to rebuild. And in the mountain villages, people were still drinking contaminated water 3 years after the storm. They set up the first water purification system in a village called Esperanza, Hope. The name felt like a promise. Ethan worked alongside Clara, both of them covered in mud and sweat, installing filters and testing chemical levels while local families watched with cautious optimism. When they turned on the system for the first time, clean water poured from the tap. Crystal clear, safe. The village elder, an old woman named Maria, filled a cup and drank. Then she started crying. Then everyone was crying and hugging and thanking them in Spanish and broken English. A little girl, maybe Sophie's age, tugged on Ethan's shirt and handed him a flower. "Gracias," she said shyly. "Gracias por el agua." "Thank you for the water." Ethan knelt down to her level, took the flower, and felt something crack open in his chest. This was why he'd become an engineer. Not for money or prestige or recognition. For this moment. For this child who would grow up healthy because he'd fixed something broken. That night, after the villagers had insisted on throwing them a celebration dinner, Ethan and Clara sat outside under a canopy of stars. The work was done. The system was running. Tomorrow they'd move to the next village and do it all again. You were right, Clara said quietly. About what? That janitor didn't just save me from the fire. He saved me from myself. She looked at him, her scarred hands resting in her lap. I was drowning in guilt and money and power, building walls around myself so high I couldn't see anything real anymore. And then you crashed through everything, literally and figuratively, reminded me what it feels like to be human, to care about something other than quarterly earnings and shareholder value. You would have figured it out eventually. No, I wouldn't have. I would have kept building my empire and my walls until I died alone in some sterile penthouse wondering why I was so empty. Clara's voice was thick with emotion. But you showed me there's another way. That fixing broken things matters. That helping people matters. That second chances are real if you're brave enough to take them. You gave me that chance, Ethan said. The job, the opportunity, everything. And you gave me back my humanity. I'd say we're even. She smiled. Your daughter is going to be so proud when you tell her about today. She already is. I sent her photos. Ethan pulled out his phone, showed Clara the messages Sophie had sent back. Hearts and smiley faces and, "My daddy is a superhero." Clara laughed, and it was genuine and warm, and nothing like the cold CEO Ethan had first met. She's right, you know. You are a superhero. The kind that doesn't need a cape or powers. Just courage and kindness, and the willingness to do what's right, even when it's hard. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to music drifting from the village, watching stars wheel overhead. Finally, Clara spoke again. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. When I was in that car when the flames were everywhere, and I couldn't breathe, and I knew I was dying. My last thought wasn't about the company or my accomplishments or anything I'd built. It was regret. Pure crushing regret that I'd wasted my life on things that didn't matter. And then you smashed through that window and pulled me out and gave me a second chance to do better. She looked at him. I don't want to waste it. I don't want to die someday wishing I'd been braver or kinder or more human. So thank you. For saving my life, and for showing me how to live it. Ethan didn't know what to say, so he just reached over and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back, and they sat there under the stars, two broken people who'd somehow helped each other heal. When they flew back to Chicago 3 weeks later, having installed systems in 8 villages and trained local teams to maintain them, Sophie was waiting at the airport with Mrs. Chen. She saw Ethan and ran, launching herself into his arms with so much force she nearly knocked him over. Daddy, you're back. Did you save everyone? Not everyone, Ethan said, holding her close. But we made a good start. Sophie pulled back, looked at his face, and her smile got even bigger. Your eyes are smiling, Daddy. Really smiling. I can see it. He realized she was right. For the first time in 3 years, the heaviness was gone. The constant weight of grief and failure and fear had lifted. He was still sad about Sarah. Would always be sad. But the sadness wasn't drowning him anymore. It was just part of him now. Part of his story. Not the ending, just a chapter. Clara appeared behind them, carrying her own luggage, despite her scarred hands. Sophie noticed her and went suddenly shy. Are you Ms. Hayes? Sophie asked. I am, and you must be Sophie. Your father talks about you constantly. He does. Sophie looked at Ethan, who nodded. What does he say? That you're the bravest, smartest, most wonderful person he's ever met, and that you're the reason he keeps going even when things are hard. Clara knelt down to Sophie's level, wincing slightly from the movement. He also said you told him to take the job because it would make him smile with his eyes again. That was very wise advice. Sophie beamed. Are you the lady Daddy saved from the fire? Yes, Twice, actually. Once from a burning car, and once from myself. What does that mean? Clara glanced at Ethan, who nodded permission. It means your daddy reminded me how to be a good person. How to help people instead of just making money. He's pretty special, your daddy. I know, Sophie said matter-of-factly. He's the best fixer in the whole world. Yes, Clara said softly. He really is. They drove back to Ethan and Sophie's apartment, except it wasn't the same apartment. Clara had arranged for them to move to a building with working heat and electricity and windows that actually closed properly. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a view that wasn't just other buildings. Sophie ran through the new space, her voice echoing off walls that didn't have water damage. Her laughter filling rooms that actually had room. Mrs. Chen helped them unpack, while Clara stayed for dinner ordering pizza because none of them had the energy to cook. While they ate, Sophie told Clara everything. About school and her friends and the book she was reading and the drawing she'd made of her daddy in Puerto Rico helping people. She talked without fear or hesitation, and Ethan realized his daughter was healing too. Becoming who she was supposed to be without the weight of poverty and fear crushing her small shoulders. Sophie, Clara said when the pizza was gone and the conversation had slowed, can I ask you something? Okay. What do you want to be when you grow up? Sophie thought about it seriously. I want to fix things like Daddy, but not just machines. I want to fix sad people, make them happy again. That's called being a therapist or a counselor, or maybe just a really good friend. Clara smiled. I think you'd be wonderful at it. Can I ask you something? Sophie said. Of course. Are you still sad about almost dying? The question was so direct, so innocent, that Clara actually laughed. Sometimes, but mostly I'm grateful, because almost dying taught me how to really live. Daddy says that about Mommy, that losing her taught him what matters. Sophie looked between them. I think you're both sad and happy at the same time. Is that okay? Yeah, baby. Ethan set his throat tight. That's okay. That's being human. After Clara left and Mrs. Chen went home, and Sophie was finally asleep in her new bedroom with her rabbit clutched tight. Ethan stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Chicago at night, beautiful and harsh and full of broken things that needed fixing. His phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Thank you for dinner, and for everything. You and Sophie are remarkable. I'm honored to know you both. See you Monday. We have more work to do. Ethan smiled and texted back. See you Monday. And Clara, thank you for giving me my life back. Her response came immediately. You gave yourself your life back. I just opened a door. You walked through it. That night, Ethan did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He looked at photos of Sarah. Really looked. Not with crushing grief, but with gentle sadness and warm memories. He remembered their first date, their wedding, the way she'd laughed when Sophie was born, and said, "We made a person, Ethan, an actual person." He remembered her final words, weak and raspy, in that hospital bed. Promise me you'll keep dreaming. Promise me you won't let this break you. Promise me you'll show Sophie how to be brave and kind and wonderful. Promise me you'll live. He'd made those promises, and he'd broken them for 3 years, drowning in survival mode, just trying to make it through each day. But now he was finally keeping them. Living. Dreaming. Showing Sophie how to be brave. He pulled out his phone and typed a message he'd been composing in his head for months. Not to anyone, just to Sarah. Words he needed to say, even though she'd never read them. I caught him. The man who hurt you. He's in prison for the rest of his life. It doesn't bring you back, and I'd trade everything to have you here instead of justice. But at least he can't hurt anyone else. At least other families won't suffer like we did. I'm sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I'm trying to save other people now, trying to build something good from all this pain. I hope that makes you proud. I hope you're watching Sophie grow up. She's so much like you, smart and kind and brave and beautiful. She makes me smile with my eyes now. Just like you used to. I love you. I'll always love you. But I'm learning how to live again. I hope that's okay." He didn't send it anywhere, just saved it in his notes. A conversation with a ghost, a promise kept, a man learning how to be whole again, even with pieces missing. The next morning, Sophie climbed into his bed at dawn, her hair messy and her breath warm. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Are you happy now, with your eyes and everything?" Ethan looked in the window's reflection, saw his face, saw his eyes, and realized Sophie was right. They were smiling, really, truly smiling. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm happy. Not all the time, not every second. But right now with you here in this moment, I'm happy." "Good," Sophie said, snuggling closer. "Because Mommy would want you to be happy. She told me before she died. She said, take care of Daddy and make sure he doesn't forget how to smile. So I've been working really hard at it." Ethan's vision blurred with tears. "You've done an excellent job, baby. The best job." They lay there together as the sun came up, father and daughter survivors both learning how to live after loss. Learning how to build joy from ashes. Learning that second chances are real if you're brave enough to grab them. And somewhere across the city, Clara Hayes woke up in her penthouse, looked at her scarred hands, and didn't see failure or guilt. She saw evidence that she'd chosen right for once, that she'd put people before profit, that she'd learned what the janitor had tried to teach her that Wednesday night when he'd fixed her prototype without being asked. Some things are worth fixing not because they're profitable, but because they're broken. And sometimes the most broken things are people, including yourself. The janitor who once mopped empty halls now engineered hope for the world. The woman who'd lived behind glass walls finally felt human again. The little girl who'd watched her mother die learned how to smile without sadness, shadowing every joy. He'd saved Clara's life once that morning on the highway, pulling her from flames with bleeding hands and no thought for himself. But really, they'd saved each other, over and over, in small ways and large, in conversations and actions, and the quiet understanding that healing isn't linear, and second chances are precious, and broken things can become beautiful if you're patient enough to do the work. Ethan Cole looked at his daughter's sleeping face and made a promise. Not to Sarah this time, to himself, to Sophie, to the future. He would keep fixing things, keep building, keep showing up, keep being brave even when he was scared, keep loving even though loving meant risking loss, keep living even though living was hard, because that's what heroes do. Not the cape-wearing kind, the real kind, the everyday kind, the kind that show up to work and raise their kids and help their neighbors and fix broken things without expecting anything in return, the kind that save people, including themselves. And in the morning light with Sophie warm against his side and hope stirring in his chest like something newly born. Ethan smiled, really smiled, with his eyes and his heart and every broken piece of himself that was slowly, carefully becoming whole again.